start. So welcome everyone to the Chase webinar series. I'm Danny Chase, the founder and CEO of Chase Office Interiors, and we're excited to present a CEU course today called A Commonsense Guide to Coated Fabrics. And looking forward to Erica Gaze being the presenter today. And this is going to be a 45-minute presentation with a 10-minute question and answer period. So please put your questions either in the chat to everyone or into the chat directly to myself, either way. Or of course, you can speak up live when it comes time for the question time. We're going to be recording this, and it's going to be made available on our Chase website at www.chaseoffice.ca/events, and it'll be available within 72 hours. And we also want to make a note of our next seminar, which will be our next webinar, I should say, will be on Thursday, October 21st, called The Next Normal: What's the Future of Ergonomics? So it's going to be an exciting new topic as well. So please register for that, and you can register on our website as well. Okay, and as for Erica Gaze, Erica is the Executive Vice President of Sales and Enablement at Carnegie, where she leads the sales organization by way of technology, tools, and education to support the needs of clients. Carnegie provides innovative, high-performance product solutions to the A&D community. A PVC-free company from day one and a B Corp since 2014, Carnegie leads the industry through design excellence and pursuit of sustainable materials. So Erica, the floor is all yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much. First things first, let me make sure we get our screen share up and running. So all right. Okay. And Danny, can you just confirm you can see the screen?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Well, again, thank you so much, Danny, and thank you all so much for joining today. This is actually one of our most popular CEUs, so I'm really thrilled to be able to share it with you all. Carnegie, as you heard in Danny's intro, is the leader in innovative, high-performance, sustainable materials for interiors. And one of the areas where we really thrive is in coated upholstery fabrics that are free of PVC. In fact, we are the only PVC-free textile company in our space. This CEU, however, is designed to really highlight the full range of options in this upholstery category. So we are going to be covering the wide spectrum of available solutions in the market, from vinyl to polyurethane to silicone, so that you have all of the information from which to make your own decisions regarding specifications. Now, as Danny said, for those of you who submitted your IDCEC numbers, we will report those for you, on your behalf. We will also be emailing, or I should say, Danny will be emailing certificates, as well as a link to some more resources that are, specific to our conversation today. So let me just dive right in. I'm going to tell you what we're going to cover today. We are going to start with the properties and the construction that are shared by these upholstery materials. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of them by content. We'll review the environmental impact of each material. And then finally, we're going to give you a sneak peek into some of the newest coated upholstery textiles on the market. So coated fabrics are incredibly versatile in that they were initially created to replace leather. But today, the aesthetics of coated fabrics go way beyond a classic leather look, from metallics to embossed designs, fabric looks, even graphic prints. Regardless of aesthetics, however, the one thing that they all have in common is that they meet high performance standards. So what exactly does this mean? First, these textiles need to be very tough. Coated upholsteries are extremely durable. They average between 100,000 to 500,000 double rubs Weizenbeat. Now, it is really important to note here that ACT, the Association for Contract Textiles, has actually disclaimed the need for an upholstery to go more than 100,000 double rubs. The ACT industry survey on durability actually found that the percent of fabric failures in the field due to durability was close to zero. Now, instead, they found that the real wild cards when assessing overall durability and the lifespan of an upholstery is cleanability and abuse. And really no amount of double rubs can compensate for either of these issues. And this doesn't really, this doesn't disavow the Weizenbeek or the Martindale tests. It just simply states that the durability of a fabric in a lab doesn't equate to how it's going to perform in the field. More so, how a fabric is cared for will affect its lifespan as much as how it's used. Now, in the resources that will come to you, I'm actually going to share a link with you at the end of this CEU, so you can have some instant gratification. But in the email that you'll get with some follow-up resources, there is a link to this statement from ACT, which can be really helpful, to have in your back pocket when you have clients who are, really hung up on that whole double rub thing. So even more than durability, cleanability is now the defining issue for these fabrics. In the age of COVID-19, cleanability is a factor that is at the top of the list for all market sectors. And when it comes to a woven textile, what makes them a tactile pleasure is also what makes them a cleaning challenge. A woven construction, it offers places for liquids to leak through, and its open structures also allow dirt and germs to kind of hide in all of those nooks and crannies. Now, on the other hand, coated fabrics are non-porous, and there isn't a place for dirt and germs to hide. This makes them natural moisture barriers, preventing liquids, stains, dirt, cleaners, etc., from soaking into the face of the material or leaking into the foam cushion beneath. Now, with coated fabrics, you can typically just wipe off most dirt or stains with a damp cloth. Now, if dirt or a stain doesn't wipe off, it can usually be removed with cleaners like a 10% bleach solution or a 70% alcohol solution. And this is a general standard for most commercial quality coated fabrics. Now, these cleaners get progressively more intense, but for many space types, a bleach or alcohol solution will be enough. There are some products like Virex that are aimed at the healthcare market for their efficiency against fighting infections. The Environmental Protection Agency has a list. It's expanded this COVID-19 disinfectant list with over 200 products. And this list really breaks down roughly into 6 main areas of registered chemicals that can be used for surface disinfection. So high quality coated fabrics can be safely cleaned with the most prominent cleaner types. You see here quaternary ammoniums, accelerated hydrogen peroxide, hypochlorite, which is bleach, and alcohol. Now, phenolic and parasitic acid types are harsh and corrosive cleaners and should only be used as directed. They are really not intended to be used on any porous surface or fabrics. Now, regardless of which of these you use, these chemicals are all far too harsh to be used on natural fibers like cotton or wool, and even many synthetics. Some solution dyed or high efficiency dyed polyesters and nylons can be cleaned with a bleach solution, but they're not designed to hold up to all of the different chemicals that are widely used today. And again, just because these fabrics are tough, it doesn't mean that they will perform well if they're not cared for properly. Improper cleaning is one of the leading causes for a fabric to fail in the field. And this can happen for a few reasons. In some cases, the person or people in charge of cleaning a facility simply haven't been provided with the right information to help them care for it properly. So communication with a team that's going to maintain your work, your designs, and keep the space and products looking good long after the project is complete is really important. And a good fabric supplier should have very clear directions on how to care for the fabric. This is oftentimes available right on the ticket of the product, on of a memo sample. It should be available on the manufacturer's website and of course through their customer service. Now, our main guideline to clients would be to really ensure that any product that you choose can stand up to the cleaning protocols of the specific facility that will be practicing. We're going to switch gears just a little bit here and talk about what initially generated the need for coated fabrics. And the origins are actually quite recent compared to most textiles. While the chemical industry started in the 1800s, it really matured at the beginning of the 20th century. Two world wars pushed American manufacturing to really ramp up its production for tanks, bombs, and all the parts that were needed. But then once the wars were over, all of those huge factories that had been built to feed the war effort needed to find new products to feed their expanded capacity. And this timing actually matched that of the developing automobile industry. To become affordable for the growing middle class, cars needed a less expensive alternative to leather for car tops and upholstery. And this really spurred the development of the imitation leather industry, which led to products like DuPont's Fabricoid, which you see advertised here. Fabricoid was basically a combination of pyroxylin, which is a former bomb component, and castor oil, which is a coated pigmented base fabric. And then vinyl, otherwise known as pleather, came out in the 1920s and 30s. This character you're seeing was actually a promotional tool from the 1960s to promote Naugahyde, which was a version of vinyl. And then polyurethane was developed during World War II as an alternative to rubber, but it went on to be used in everything from clothing to coatings to foams to solid surfaces. And by the 1950s, it was also used in seating and upholstery. And then silicone products really hit their stride in the last 20 years with the success of sill mats and other common household goods like ice trays. Lots of baby products are made out of silicone, but also medical offerings like contact lenses, for example. Now later on, we're going to talk about the environmental benefits of all of these. But first, let's just move into a discussion about how each of these various coated fabric types are constructed and what they're made out of. So the differences between vinyl, polyurethane, and silicone are mostly at the beginning stage when the initial chemicals are mixed to create the content material. The actual upholstery production is consistent and they all kind of share the same parts. So it's basically several layers that are laminated together. Each layer is successively coated over the next, which is where the name coated fabrics comes from. Now the content and synthetic on the face of the product is how the whole product is defined. So that's the layer that you feel and that you see. The top layer can be made of various things like polyurethane topped with silicone. It could be made of multiple resins like polyurethane, a polycarbonate blend, silicone, and so on. But what's key is that the top layer is really what defines its key properties. The middle layer is what gives the fabric padding its softness. It serves as a support for the face and filler for products that have kind of a deep emboss as the design. It can have some recycled content or be completely different material than the face. And then the bottom layer of the fabric is really the foundation. It can be a woven, a knit, or a non-woven. It's usually made out of polyester, cotton, rayon, or a blend. It offers stability, recovery, and durability to the layers above. So all three layers do play a critical role. So while all coated upholsteries share the same basic layered construction, their actual content is what differentiates them in the way that they look, the way that they feel, and how they perform, and especially in their environmental impact. Now, vinyl offers the most design variability among the materials that we'll be discussing. It's hard, it's a non-stretchy surface, which makes it really easy to print on. It's very good for holding deep embosses. And it's also the most inexpensive option available. Now, vinyl, however, is not breathable, and it doesn't adapt well to body temperatures, which is why sitting on it can be kind of like a sticky, sweaty experience. It tends to also be stiffer, which makes it a little bit more challenged to upholster on some forms. Vinyl can also get brittle in low temperatures, so you'll need to check its cold crack rating to see if it will work, for the specific environment you are designing for. Now, some best practices in mind when upholstering with vinyl are to avoid seating shapes with extreme curves, though you can use heat to melt it to kind of shape around different forms if needed. And it's also advised to avoid combining vinyls with soft foams. Now, if you're looking for the most realistic kind of imitation leather look, then polyurethane is a great option. It has a really soft hand and it will wrinkle like leather when it's gathered or stitched or tufted, like you kind of see here in this image. It is also breathable. So it adjusts really well to body temperature, and it also performs well at low temperatures. Now, polyurethanes have two challenges at times, puddling and hydrolysis. Now, one thing I want to make very clear is that a high quality polyurethane is not going to present these issues. Now, puddling occurs because a polyurethane, it's a soft plastic, and it can stretch around a seat if it's not properly supported. So the best way to counter this is to choose a high quality polyurethane product with a backing that has some memory, and that will help it retain some of that original shape. Now, a few best practices when upholstering with polyurethane upholstery would be to use a high density foam. You might also consider having the foam wrapped to help keep the polyurethane from bunching, and also avoiding long spans without seams. And then lastly, it's important not to railroad these products. The other concern with polyurethanes is called hydrolysis. Now, just as vinyls are sensitive to cold, humidity and heat can break down the cell structure of a polyurethane, and that results in kind of a flaking, brittle surface like you see here. Hydrolysis test results are really the most important factor to determine if a polyurethane is suitable for commercial seating applications. So the test to measure hydrolysis, it's called the tropical test. It's also known as the jungle test. If you want to get really technical, the actual name of this test is ISO 1419-1995E. But this test actually starts by putting the material in a controlled air oven and humidity apparatus. And then from there, they set it to 158 degrees Fahrenheit in 95% humidity over the course of several weeks. And then at the end, they compare that sample to the control sample and they evaluate it for degradation and other, physical properties. Now, ACT, the Association of Contract Textiles, it recommends a result with a minimum of 5 weeks. Now, top of the line polycarbonate polyurethanes, which we'll talk about more in a moment, can get a result from 10 to 14 weeks. And you might be wondering, why are we talking about weeks? So initially these test results were stated as years, as they found, like a rough correlation between the weeks tested to yearly performance in the field. But then in practice, hydrolysis year results were getting confused by end users with the product warranties. Now, warranties cover much more than just hydrolysis, and it really is what you should be looking at in terms of how a company will support its product. So anyways, while most manufacturers have adopted to showing this result in terms of weeks, if you see a result related to years, you'll know it essentially means the same thing. Now, I mentioned this just earlier, but there are different qualities that can be used for polyurethane, and this is a result of the resin base that's used. There are 3 options available. Polycarbonate is the highest in cost, but it is also the strongest with the best hydrolysis results. Now, for commercial upholstery, we recommend only polycarbonate resins be specified. If it's not listed on the content, ask your supplier what the base resin is. And again, you want to look for polycarbonate. Now, if the price is low, it probably means a lower quality resin has been used. Polyether resin is in the middle range and polyester at the bottom. Now, polyester polyurethanes are typically used for more like clothing, shoes, bags. Now, to sum up polyurethanes, I want to give you 4 questions to consider when you're specifying this product type. The first is, again, what type of resin is it made from? The resin really dictates the overall performance and quality of the material. And if the product is being used in a contract, hospitality, healthcare, or any harsh environment, a polycarbonate resin is recommended. Number 2 is, what are hydrolysis results? So hydrolysis resistance is, again, the single most important performance characteristic of the polyurethane. Polyurethanes being used in the contract environment must have a minimum of 5-week hydrolysis resistance. And the third question you want to ask is, how can the material be cleaned? Polyurethanes that are manufactured with polycarbonate resins offer excellent stain resistance and cleanability. If required, they can be cleaned with a bleach or alcohol solution, and even many of the disinfectants that are recommended by CDC guidelines are equal. Now, the best practice is to find out from the facility that you're working with how and what products are used in their protocol, and then work directly with your manufacturer partners to confirm if a material can in fact be cleaned with those products. The fourth question that you want to ask when specifying a polyurethane is, what is the result for light fastness? And this is how the material responds to UV light. Now, polyurethanes for commercial grade upholstery should have a minimum of ultraviolet resistance of 200 hours. Traditionally, lower quality polyurethanes only meet the residential standard of 40 hours. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about silicone. So silicone it's as soft as a polyurethane, but it also has good drape, and it really shapes around furniture very nicely. In addition to all of its high performance qualities, in addition, all of its high performance qualities are inherent, meaning that there are no additives required for it to perform as well as it does. Vinyl and polyurethane, on the other hand, both require chemical additives to really achieve their best performance. Another benefit to silicone is that it's thermally neutral. So you heard me say earlier that vinyl is sensitive to cold, and polyurethane doesn't like heat. So if you think about the products that are made with silicone in your kitchen, right, like oven mitts, Silpat mats, ice cube trays, these products work because the silicone isn't affected by freezing or hot temperatures. And so that same attribute translates to silicone upholsteries. It also passes FR codes for upholstery without halogenated flame retardants. And top quality silicone upholsteries actually use the same high quality material as approved for medical products like implants or tubing. It is also antimicrobial and antibacterial, again, without the addition of additives. And then lastly, silicone is very easy to clean. Silicones do not require a top coat or any other finishes. The highest quality silicones have been tested to be cleanable with this monstrously long list of intense cleaners. So again, really never hesitate to ask your supplier if they have tested it with the cleaner you or your client anticipate being used. Even the dreaded denim and pen stains come off easily from many silicones. Most should just come off with a clean, soft, damp cloth. And then any kind of ghosting that's left over can be fixed with an alcohol wipe. And again, all without coating or a finish on the fabric. And silicone upholsteries have really evolved a lot in the last several years. When they first were introduced to the market, they kind of had a kind of sticky, tacky hand to them, and they just weren't as nice to the touch. The latest generation of products feel so much softer with improved material, and there's the ability to kind of emboss the surface a bit. And this really takes care of the sticky hand and also helps lend towards a more natural look if you're going for like a alternate to leather. These newer silicone upholsteries also use more than a single layer of silicone on the face, which improves the scratch resistance and what's called white bleed that happened on kind of first generation silicones when they were stretched. And then lastly, the backing has been updated from a single knit to a double knit, and that also improves its stability and controls the stretch. So we've talked about the differences between vinyl, polyurethane, and silicone related to performance. But where these products really start to look different is when we examine their environmental impact. From manufacturing to use to disposal, each item, has its issues, yet the degrees of concern vary significantly. So first question is, how do you know which plastics are good and which are bad or not so good? One place that's good to start is this plastics pyramid from Greenpeace, which actually rates plastics from worst at the top to better and best as you move to the bottom. Now, according to Greenpeace, PVC is the most environmentally damaging plastic. The PVC life cycle, its production, use, and disposal results in the release of toxic chlorine-based chemicals, and these toxins are building up in the water, air, and food chain. The Healthy Building Network offers this Venn diagram from their white paper called The Future of Fabric, where they partnered with Healthcare Without Harm. And here they combine and overlap the material and chemical concerns of organizations like LEED, even firms like Perkins and Will, the Green Guide to Healthcare, and the Living Building Challenge. And you'll see that nearly all of them note PVC as a material of concern. Now, the second major concern with vinyl is that it requires the addition of plasticizers to make it soft and flexible enough for upholstery end use. And phthalates are the most commonly used plasticizer. Now, in an excerpt from the paper, The Future of Fabric, says that phthalates used to soften vinyls are reproductive and developmental toxicants because they do not permanently bind to the vinyl. Phthalates can leach from the fabrics into the air, soil, and water. Now, many vinyl producers are no longer using phthalates, So we recommend looking for this option if possible, if you are going to use a vinyl. And as for recycling vinyls, most of the vinyl that is returned to the system is downcycled. So for instance, into the padding middle layer of the vinyl upholstery, or another example completely outside the realm of upholstery is traffic cones. Unfortunately, however, most plastics, including vinyls, end up in a landfill. According to Healthy Environments, what's new and what's not with PVC, most of the PVC for recycling is sent to China, where legacy contaminants like phthalates are actually being blended into the new products. So what this means is that when old PVC products are recycled, that puts all the old problems back into new products. Now, polyurethane is the next most common option available as a coated fabric, and it's an improvement on the plastics pyramid, but it is only one step improved. First and foremost, it is PVC free. So it does not contain chlorine chemistry, dioxins, or plasticizers. Polyurethanes are a type of thermoplastic polymer that blends polyols, also known as fossil fuels, combined with diisocionates, which is like chemicals. And this produces a plastic that is inherently soft and flexible and ideal for upholstery. Now, diisocionates is definitely a word you can impress people with. Doesn't sound great, but according to the EPA, there is no danger to consumers from the diisocionates in polyurethane upholsteries because the product is fully cured. So what this means is that the product is completely fixed into the product and won't come off with heat or agitation. Now, high quality polyurethanes should also be free of BPAs, heavy metals, and formaldehyde. Now, one interesting development that is newer to the market are CPUs, or clean performance polyurethanes. And these products use very little water and energy in production, so they're much cleaner to produce than a traditional polyurethane. Now, in addition, they actually eliminate that center layer. And this is the second kind of key to its environmental story, because the foam in the middle layer usually requires solvents in production. And this solvent is DMF and has recently been listed as a chemical of concern by Kaiser Permanente and must be called out for Cal Prop 65. This proposition requires businesses to provide warnings to Californians in the US about significant exposures to chemicals that cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm. So here's an example of a CPU, and in this case, you can see it's capable of creating a wonderfully convincing leather look. And silicone wasn't actually on Greenpeace's radar when they initially created the plastics pyramid, and there are debates about where exactly it should go. We would suggest that it should place about in the middle, better than PVC and polyurethanes, but not as good as polyethylene or bio-based polymers. So we place it in the middle of the pyramid because while the base raw material for silicone is sand, it also requires a little bit of fossil fuels and a lot of energy to get the silicone from the sand. So the jury is still kind of out if sand can actually be considered a rapidly renewable resource, because that description has only been applied to living things with a harvest cycle. But it is not petroleum-based, and it is one of the most abundant materials on Earth. The most compelling environmental story of silicone is about what is not in it. And I went over the performance story. I mentioned a couple times it doesn't require additives. And this just means it's a much cleaner plastic than vinyl or polyurethanes, which both require additives. That absence, I should say, of extra chemicals means that it meets HHI, or Healthier Hospitals Initiative criteria. And again, it's compliant with Cal Prop 65. It is also approved by several EU organizations, ROHS, which is the Restriction of Hazardous Substances Directive, and REACH, which is an EU watchdog with a red list of problem materials. So all in all, silicone gets pretty close to the goal of no finish is the best finish, while still having really amazing performance characteristics. So the question that we constantly ask ourselves is what's next? Two recent developments to know about. They offer the look of woven textiles with the performance of and wipeability of a coated upholstery. So silicone hybrids have recently been introduced to the market. These combine a middle layer of polycarbonate polyurethane that is printed, and then a top layer of silicone. And this, in this new development, the printed polycarbonate polyurethane allows for a really, crisp registration and unique textile look. And again, the top layer of silicone gives it superior cleanability and performance characteristics. This is kind of fun. This image on the left is a woven textile, and the image on the right is one of these silicone hybrids using the digital printing technology topped with the silicone, and it is just remarkable how difficult it is to tell the difference between the two. So the end result is that you get the look of a woven textile with all of the benefits of a wipeable surface. This was a really great solution for Wayne Healthcare, which was a project in Greenville, Ohio, where Jill Woods, principal of Trinity NAC, she was directed by the healthcare system, Wayne Healthcare, to only use coated fabrics on this project. And she shared that this silicone hybrid technology really gave her the ability to have a sophisticated, cool pattern that looked like a woven textile. And she said, subconsciously you perceive that it will be a nice soft material with a homey feeling, but it'll hold up and look pristine for much longer since building maintenance can just wipe it down. Here are just a few more images of this technology in action and how realistic the woven quality looks. And one of the real breakthroughs in this development outside of the printing clarity is that it is DMF free. And then last but not least, there are also TPEs, or thermoplastic elastomers. TPEs are high performance fused woven textiles that are chemically bonded with the durable components of a coated fabric to create this innovative fused textile. Like the printed silicone hybrids that I showed you just before, TPEs really marry the look of a woven fabric with the performance of a coated fabric. And it's a process that integrates a clear TPE layer to the top of the woven fabric, again, without sacrificing the textile look. And it's really a quantum leap ahead of our other conventional PFC-based stain resistant systems. These are ink and stain resistant. They are impermeable to liquids, bleach cleanable. They passed a wear test of over 1 million double rubs, which is, again, sounds very impressive, but hopefully, as you remember from one of my first talking points, double rubs is not the end all be all. But again, this all makes them very suitable for high traffic performance applications. And they can also be cleaned with hospital grade 5 cleaners. So no question, I put a lot of information in front of you today. So we have this great chart with the information gathered from third-party resources and testing to really break down this data, giving you a side-by-side comparison on quality, performance, environmental impact. And we also have this really handy coated fabrics guide that breaks down all of the different types of coated fabric options and their benefits. I'm actually, we're going to put a link to this page that is full of great resources about PVC-free coated upholstery. You'll find that right in the chat area of this Zoom. So you can access them right away. We will also include it in the follow-up email with your certificates. So I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to Danny and the Chase Office Interiors team for inviting Carnegie to be part of this wonderful educational CEU series. I'd also love to take this opportunity to make sure you all know Gabriella Caldwell with Concentric. Concentric joined the Carnegie team in September and gosh, August or September, in there recently, and we're so thrilled to have this team representing the brand. So Gabrielle, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Erica. I just wanted to say a quick hello to everyone. As Erica mentioned, Concentric's really excited to now be representing Carnegie in the territory, along with all of our other lines. And so if you have any additional questions or anything like that, please always feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help.
Awesome. Yeah, very, very well done, Erica. And thank you so much as well, Gabriella. Now it's time for some questions and answers. So, Erica, there was lots of tongue twisting words that you said there, and that's pretty impressive. Obviously not the first time you've delivered this. So who has questions for Erica? I had one question that was sent to me. It was more about what is the future of these coated fabrics, but you captured that at the end as well. So anything further on that you'd like to add around what the future of it is? Sure.
That's really, we're looking into things related to, there's some interesting innovations out there, not quite ready for the commercial market, but where mushrooms have actually been kind of the source material. That's a whole nother conversation, but really fascinating. And, kind of taking off the CEU hat for a moment and just talking about, maybe getting into a little bit more specifics. With Carnegie, we've developed, the first bio-based textile, which is bio-based Zorel. And that too can be used for upholstery applications, not technically coated, but similar performance. And so that's kind of another, it's not the future, it's here, but something you can consider.
Okay, excellent.
Can I ask a fast question?
Please do.
I was wondering, because I do more retail than commercial, if there are retail companies incorporating these fabrics into their lineups, which companies are, which aren't, is there proper labeling? How would I learn all that?
Yeah. We actually, we work with many different retail companies. Top of mind, I'm thinking of Macy's, a lot of fast food chains, and not just us. I know, these product types have been widely used from us and our friendly competitors in the market too. But I think a lot of the performance criteria that was covered is directly applicable to retail. So, really any of these would be appropriate.
Sorry, I actually meant for the general public, for home use.
Oh, for home use, yes. Yes, I mean, these can absolutely be used for the home. Can you tell me a little bit more about the question related to companies that are using?
Well, I'm just wondering if you know of any companies that I don't know if I take it you're in the States, but big companies, is Amazon doing this? Because I'm not big on them, but for people buying for their in-home use, are they labeling these properly? How would I learn to educate?
Yes. Okay, got it. I understand now. So I would be very wary of sourcing these products from companies that don't live and breathe this. I think a good example of where things can go wrong is I think a lot of what you'll find on the residential market, on the Amazons of the world, there is often not the third party testing, and they're often not going to disclose the types of resins that are being used. And in fact, a lot of times, you know, when you find those lower quality resins, in the case of polyurethanes being used, you know, it's from it's coming from sources that don't, you know, live and die by providing a high performance product. So I would just be a little cautious there.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And Erica, around the silicone hybrids, you know, where would that fall within like value and price point versus, you know, some of the others?
Sure, sure. So these are going to be on the higher end of the spectrum. They are very comparable to what you would find in kind of a signature pattern that's woven. So you're kind of neck and neck pricing wise in terms of design, but then the added benefit of the, you know, coated qualities. So yes, kind of on the, if you were, and you'll see this in the chart, like if you're doing like 4 stars being most expensive, it would be on that 4-star level. For, you know, for some of the ones that you saw, you know, Canadian pricing is around 108 for those. Whereas, you know, the whole spectrum of coated fabrics might start in the 50s or 60s range. So just to give you some perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. There's one another message that just came directly to me as well, saying, is it possible to have custom patterns made in coated fabrics, and what would be the process or minimums required for that?
Yes, yes. We actually just wrapped up. It's funny. We actually started a custom for a hospital system in Indiana, and they wanted to adapt one of our existing woven patterns into the silicone hybrid technology. So we were able to do that. That was a little easier because we already had the pattern, but we can absolutely explore, you know, completely custom options. Typically that starts with a minimum yardage requirement of around 1,000 yards.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Excellent. Any other questions for Erica? Incredibly knowledgeable and lots of information for sure. And again, we will be giving a follow-up email to everyone who's attending, and that will have you know, the link for more resource information, as well as you know, the PDF summary that Erica spoke of as well. And I will CC Erica as well. If anybody did have any more direct questions for Erica, you'll certainly see her email in the CC of my email that I send out to everyone. So just wanted to thank you so much, Erica, for taking the time and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us today. And wanted to thank everyone for joining the Chase webinar series. And just want to remind everybody to please fill out a survey and how you liked this today, so we could continuously learn both at Chase as well as Erica and Gabriella, and you know, in terms of how we can be better in terms of delivering these in the future. So just a reminder as well that you can register for our next webinar, which is 2 weeks from today, and called The Next Normal: What's the Future of Ergonomics? And if there's no other questions, we can give people back some time of theirs, but we can pause for a moment if there are last moment questions. Silence.
I see someone asked about sharing this presentation for new hires. That's awesome. Absolutely. That'd be great.
Awesome. If you want to send that to me as well, then Erica, then I'll share that out with the group. I do have one person actually asking me if they could see this in PDF even this afternoon. So sorry, if you don't mind sharing that with me, like sooner than later, then I could send to that one individual right away, because they have a presentation this afternoon they want to reference.
Absolutely. So, and you know, Gabriella is ready and waiting for your sample orders too.
Awesome. And I'll also include Gabriella on the CC of my email, so you'll have both Gabriella and Erica's emails. So Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much again for sharing your presentation. It's awesome. We will be giving everybody their CEU credits. You'll see those within your account approximately the next 5 to 7 days, just to give some time to process. And any other questions, you can certainly reach out to myself or Erica or Gabriella, and we'd love to help you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye,
Have a
everyone.
wonderful day.